Hello? I have like 10 minutes until I have to leave the house. I am like putting stuff away. I just filmed this video for my main channel, a Valentine's Day video, which by the time you see this, it will already be up because I'm going to post it here in just a little bit. It's rendering and I'm putting my stuff away. And I have marriage counseling, which we don't really have anything to talk about tonight. Which sometimes they turn into interesting, things then, because we don't know, like, what we're going to talk about. And it sometimes turns out really good that way. I don't know if that makes any sense, but because we end up talking about something random, like how to plan more creative date nights or things like that. So I'm just going to put this up here while I'm putting my stuff away. I had a good day today. I had a meeting. My neighbor is outside. She's, like, sitting on the patio, like, singing. So anyway, I slept in and I had a meeting earlier, and then I went and got like props for my video. It's like this Valentine's Day prop video, and then I filmed it, and now I'm putting my stuff away. Alex, we're having our counseling session, and then he has to go back to work for an hour because he has a meeting. And then I was going to go to a meeting with Tanya, but I have so much to do that I don't think I can get it done tonight. Or I don't think I can go to the meeting tonight. And then my sponsor wanted me to go to a meeting too. But I think I'm not going to do either. And, yeah. So anyway, she is like singing so loud up there. It's so funny. Can you guys hear her? I really some days wish like our condo was bigger because it's so small that I could have like a room set up. I mean, I could do this in the basement if I clean the damn basement, which I need to do. I just would like, I just want to throw everything away down there. I just would like to spend my time doing things I love to do instead of things I don't want to do, So anyway. Life today is really good. And, oh, look who came to join us. Well, hello. How are you? I think that he probably needs to go potty, so I'm going to take him out. Oh, he's got to get some water, too. I'm going to take him out, and then I will catch you guys in just a little bit. Hello. Happy Valentine's Day to you. Happy Valentine's Day to you. I've been driving around listening to my audiobook. I'm listening to this Rabbit, the autobiography of Miss Pat. It is, I wrote like an update on my Goodreads and I said, this book is so good. And it's like, it's really not a good description for it because the story is so tragic. I don't know what that was, but it is so well told and I'm so impressed with it that this woman just like tells her truth and she's reading it and it's like it's so endearing. But at times, it's so tragic, too. Like, she has 2 kids by the time that she's 17. They're under the age of 2. And she's her first one when she's 13. And that's where I'm at right now in the book. She's, like, going into labor for her first child. And she's really scared. And they call the ambulance to come and get her. And she asks her mom to come and get her. And her mom's just, like, sitting on the couch smoking a cigarette. This is a true story, too, And her mom's just sitting on the couch smoking a cigarette. And she's like, you don't need me. And she's like, if there's anything that I learned in life, it was like to never ask, mama for anything. And it's just so sad. And one of the things that's kind of a consistent theme through the whole book so far is that they're so poor and their mom is such a hardcore alcoholic that they're always hungry. Like they're always hungry. And so their mom like has them baptized at all these different churches so they can get free food. And then they it's just such a tragic book, but it's told in such a beautiful way from her own voice that it's like, I don't know, I got this book on sale on Audible, and I didn't know anything about it, but I love memoirs, like tell-alls like this about just people out there, and I guess she's a comedian. Her name is Patricia Williams. I guess she's a comedian, and that, like, she talks in there at the beginning about the way that she gets through stuff is by laughter and making jokes. I love it. So anyway, my day was good. Did I say earlier what I did today? I didn't do much, but after I got off of here earlier, went to my marriage counseling session with Alex. It was fine. It was like, I don't know, it was some of the sessions we get a lot out of, and other sessions are just kind of like us catching up, and that's kind of what it was tonight. And then he had to go back to work for a meeting, and then he came home after that, and I went home to like upload my video and let the dogs out and feed them. We don't know what's wrong. Alex just spent all this money on this dog food, and Pee-Pee won't eat it. He hates it. Today was not a good day for Pee-Pee. He coughed a lot today. And the vet said that she wanted his cough completely gone, and he's still coughing. So I'm going to have to call the vet tomorrow, because, it's been like 2 months now, and the cough was getting better, and he would cough like once every 3 or 4 days, and now the cough is getting bad again. And, yesterday he coughed like twice, and today he's coughed, all day. It's been off and on all day long, and it just, when it's happening, you can tell it's like he's in this fit, and then it's like as soon as he gets like done with it, he seems a little bit better, like he seems kind of like back to himself. Like, it really scares him in the moment, and I just pick him up and like pet him, and I'm like, it's gonna be okay, Pee-Pee, it's gonna be okay. And then, but tonight it was happening, like when we were sitting there eating, it was happening like every 10 minutes, and we were like, both of us, I think, kind of scared, like, I don't know, it hasn't been like that since the very beginning. And so I'm also wondering, like, we break his medicine up in half. I'm wondering if we're maybe not supposed to do that. So that's what I called, and they said don't grind it up, but they didn't say anything about breaking it in half. And if it's time release, I'm wondering if that's what's going on, and so we're not supposed to be breaking it in half. I'm going to ask them that tomorrow. It just breaks my heart, for him. So then Alex was on his way home, and I was running out to get food, and so I asked him if he wanted something from Noodles and Company. So I got something, and then he wanted steak stroganoff, and I got this pesto cavatappi, and we sat there and ate, and we watched Vanderpump Rules, which I don't really regularly watch, but Alex does, so I kind of know what's going on. And then I laid down for a little bit, and then I got up. He was still up watching TV, and it's like so dark out here in the country. And yeah, that was that. And then I was going to do a live stream, and I just was like worried about Pee-Pee, and I was like, I'm not going to do a live stream tonight. So I didn't. And then I think I'm going to do one tomorrow during the day, because tomorrow's Valentine's Day, and we're going out to dinner and a bunch of stuff. So I'm not going to do it tomorrow night, obviously, unless Alex for some reason goes to bed early, and then maybe I would, but I doubt he will. We'll probably watch a movie after dinner. Yeah, and that was that. So that was our day. And then I was gonna like start listening, or I was gonna start doing my vlog like right away. And I ended up listening to my audiobook, and I kind of got so into it that I was like, oh wait. Now I'm tired, so. But it was a good day. It was a relaxed day. It was nice. Most of my days are relaxed anymore. I was talking to my sponsor about that the other day. Man, that house is like out in the middle of nowhere, and it's ginormous. It always kills me when you see these houses that are like out in the middle of nowhere in the country, and they look like complete mansions, and it's on a little man-made lake and everything. But I was saying to my sponsor that, like, since I've been doing all this gratitude work, I have have been so, like, just calm and focused and peaceful. And, like, this book is good for me to listen to because, you know, it reminds me of, like, how blessed my life is. And I don't know, it's also bringing up a lot of stuff, too, like being raised by an alcoholic. And it's hard to listen to some of it, you know, honestly, because even though she's, you know, in the book, she's, like, raised, like, you know, in a very poor part of Atlanta, and that's not my story. The fear of being a child of an alcoholic is very similar, I think. Except that I never worried about, like, where my next meal was going to come from. I did worry about things like my mom burning the house down. She was all, like, my mom was a home drinker. Like, she didn't go out a lot and drink. So, I mean, every once in a while she would go out with her girlfriends and whatever. But, like, I had this babysitter named Edie Mae. And she was, like, in high school, and she was, like, in choir, and she was, like, a really nice girl, and I loved her. So whenever my mom went out, Edie Mae would babysit me, and I loved that. You know, I was, like, so excited that I had, you know, Edie Mae that was coming over, and she babysat me this entire summer that my mom got her master's degree, because my mom was, like, at school, like, an entire summer, every day. And so it was, like, Monday through Thursday, she would come over, and we would go to the pool, and we would, like, ride our bikes to McDonald's, and we would eat lunch at McDonald's and get ice cream at Baskin Robbins. And I kind of wonder, I looked her up on Facebook a while back, and I was like, I wonder whatever happened to her. And this is kind of a funny story. So she was, like, a really good singer. The high school that I went to had this singing group called the Ambassadors, and it was, like, really well known in the country. And she was, like, in that singing group. And a lot of these people took private lessons from this. I don't even remember what this woman's name was now. But they took private lessons from this woman. And so this woman, like, picked, like, at the time, like, 2 third or fourth graders that had really good singing voices. You guys will think this is funny. To be on this, like, album. They were putting together this, like, children's album of like, children's songs. And I got to be in the album. So it was, like, kids all the way from, like, I was, like, the youngest one. It was, like, me and, like, 2 others, and we were, like, in 3rd grade. And then it went all the way up to, I was, like, in my head, I'm thinking of this woman's name, but that's something completely different. I'll tell you in a second. But anyway, it went all the way up to, like, high school, and I don't even remember the songs that we sang, but I do remember, like, sitting on this old woman's, like, living room floor, and we were all, like, sitting there singing it, and then we were, like, recorded this album. So I'm, like, on this children's album. Isn't that funny? I think if I had more confidence, like, when I was growing up, like, I was always, like, singing, you know, like, in the living room to, like, records, but, like, I would sing to, like, I didn't sing to, like, a lot of musicals. Like, I never was a big musicals person. I loved Annie, the soundtrack Annie, but, like, and I think I kind of, like, related to that story. I don't know why, don't ask. But other than that, like, I never, like, would sing to, like, musicals. Oklahoma, some of it, because my mom and I had gone and seen that, but other than that, I didn't really sing to, like, musicals. But I would sing to, like, Fleetwood Mac, and I would stand, and my mom had this long microphone that, like, hooked into the stereo, and I would, like, just sing it, but I wouldn't, like, hook it in, and I would just act like I was on a stage, and I would sing Thelma Houston, Don't Leave Me This Way, and I would sing, like, you know, Bob Dylan, and I would sing, so, like, when I sing in my videos, you guys, like, that's who I was at, like, 5 and 6 years old, you know, like, all the way to, like, 10, you know? And I would put on shows. I would write these elaborate shows when I was growing up, and then have, like, my mom watch them or my dad watch them, and, you know, puppet shows I put on with all of my stuffed animals. My mother was such a good sport. I mean, she really was. She would watch all of this stuff. And, of course, like, I would have an intermission with, like, you know, treats, cookies, and stuff like that. I mean, you had to do the whole thing, right? You couldn't just do the puppet show. You had to have intermission. And so, I mean, that's what you do when you're an only child, is you create all that kind of stuff. But, like, I was in choir, like, all the way through, like, 8th grade, and I don't know, like, my parents didn't really push it. They did not push it. They just were like, do what you want to do. And then I was in orchestra too, but I could care less about orchestra. I played violin and I never practiced ever once. I hated it. But I liked being in orchestra because my friends were in orchestra. So, but my friends that were in orchestra in high school, the reason I stayed, they weren't like string players. It was like my friend Leisha played clarinet and saxophone, and my friend Meredith was a percussionist. She played drums. And I think I just stayed in orchestra for them. I always kind of walked this fine line when I was in high school too, of like I knew the partying behavior that I was engaging in, like, I didn't like that side of myself. There was always a lot of shame associated with it, you know, and I think that has a lot to do with, like, being raised, you know, like, by an alcoholic. It's like, I wanted to be an adult so bad, and I wanted to, like, drink and smoke cigarettes and party and do all that kind of stuff, but at the same time, like, I didn't, you know, like, I wanted to stay a kid forever, and, like, orchestra was, like, good for me because it was, like, a lot of good kids. It was, like, you know, my friend, like, even my friends in there, I mean, we smoked cigarettes and stuff like that, but those friends, like, we didn't really party together a whole lot, you know, and I don't know, it's just, like, I always kind of walked that line between wanting to be, like, a total rebel and, like, wanting to be a good kid. And, I was very polite to teachers in high school, very quiet. I grew up talking a lot in classes to, like, other students, and I got in so much trouble that by the time that I was in high school, I was just silent. I didn't talk to people. But I was also so bullied that if I wasn't, like, with my friends, I, like, knew to keep my mouth shut. Like, I'm so sassy today. Like, I mean, if I was in high school today, half of the shit, I mean, 75 to 80% of the shit that happened to me would not have happened. I would not have taken it, period, end of story. I just wouldn't have. And I would have fought back. But I wasn't that person then, and I was terrified, you know, and, you know, part of the whole issue with bullying is not the bullying, it's the fear associated of not knowing what's going to happen next. You know, you don't know what your next punishment's going to be or what they're going to do for you, and so it's just this feeling of constantly looking over your shoulders, and it's so horrible, and, but that's how I felt all the time, you know, and I don't know. Sometimes I wish I could go back and do it all different, you know? So I think, like, there's a part of me that feels like if I had come out in high school, well, the weird thing is like I was talking to somebody about this today. I ran into this girl that I grew up with. I said Misty. But I ran into her and we were talking today, you know, and I was thinking after that, like, I always think, like, I had a girlfriend my senior year in high school. Like, I kind of, like, here's how it is. Like, when people are like, oh, I knew I was gay when I was, like, 10. I didn't know that I was gay when I was 10. I knew that I had crushes on guys. And I knew that I had crushes on, it was always, like, a lot older guys, too. It wasn't typically, like, guys in my class. It was, like, the neighborhood, it's like, I was, like, 12. It was, like, the neighborhood, like, it was our neighbor. He was, like, 17 or 18, and he'd be out in the front yard mowing his lawn, you know, and I'd be like, I thought he was so attractive, but it was never, like, weird, you know, like, I mean, it was never, like, I just had, like, butterflies in my stomach, or I would get nervous around people. It was always, like, coaches and stuff like that, and then when I was in high school, it was people my own age, but I think, like, I was so afraid to call it what it was. Because if I said, like, oh, I was telling this girl today, I was like, we were talking about crushes we had in high school. And I said, oh my God, I said, she's like, it's so sad. She goes, you're like the only one I had a crush on that still looks halfway decent. I was like, halfway decent, girl, now come on. She's like, no, but you know what I mean. She's like, all these guys that I had, like, crushes on, she's like, they look so old, they don't look well, they haven't taken care of themselves, you know, it's just really sad. And I said, oh, I know. I said, do you know, like, so-and-so? And she was like, you had a crush on him? And I was like, oh my God. I was like, yes. And this guy was a football player. He was never mean to me, but he was never nice to me. Like, we just didn't talk, you know, but I had such a crush on him. And it's so weird. Like, I've always had crushes on people that there's something a little physically off about. I don't know how to explain it, you know, like, there's something crooked about their teeth, or like pot bellies, or you know what I mean? Like there's just always something a little off about them that for me kind of like makes them attractive. I don't know what it is. So I was telling her this, and I said, I looked him up on Facebook like a year ago. I said something about him, like I was thinking of something and it triggered in my mind. And I said, have you seen him? And she's like, no. And I said, oh yeah, he's like 400 pounds. And I said, he's like gone through a divorce. I said, his life is just real sad. It like breaks my heart to even look at that stuff. And then the ones that I never thought were attractive in high school are like the men and the women look so good today, you know? So it's just interesting to me, like when you look back on all of that kind of stuff. But I don't think I ever, like I think I was so afraid of like coming out and saying, yes, this is what it is. I like guys, I'm gay. I mean, I was terrified of just even admitting that to myself. But I think knowing what I know today, it wouldn't have changed anything. Like, people would have still been rude. I would have still been afraid for my life. I would have still been like terrified, you know? And it's like, I was like sitting in Noodles Company today, and I was like waiting for my food, and this like young gay couple came in. They were probably, I don't know, like seniors in high school. There's a lot of college kids in this Noodles and Company, so it's hard to kind of like, I'm not good with ages, but they seemed to me like they were like 18. And they were sitting there and they were eating, and like the one guy kept on like reaching over and touching the guy's nose and stuff. And I was like, you know, like I didn't get to do that kind of stuff. You know, like I missed out on that whole part of being a teenager. You know what I mean? Like, and but at the same time, like, but I did start dating like at 18. So I don't know. Did I really miss out on it? I don't know. It's sad to me, you know. And then I know so many people that just can't meet people when they're younger, you know, to date, and I don't know. And then people like, even in college, it's like, well, I don't want to be in a relationship. Like my brother-in-law was like, I don't want to be in a relationship in college, and he got into one 2 weeks after, like 2 weeks before he was graduating from high school. And I'm like, well, what's so funny though is like my first boyfriend that I had, I always like right from the get-go, I was like, I wasn't all about the like, let's just kind of casually date. I was like, let's go on a date and then like, let's get married. Like that's always been my attitude. I'm like such a weirdo when it comes to like this monogamy thing and like traditional marriage. Like I am like a traditional like let's celebrate anniversaries, and I've always been like that ever since I was like 18, 19 years old. I mean, I came out when I was 18. But even then, like even when I was like using a lot and stuff, like I was like pretty, like I made good choices. Like I wasn't like, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with this. You gotta, you know, hey, have your own journey. But I've never been like super promiscuous. I was always like afraid of like putting myself in dangerous situations. Do you know what I mean? And so I don't know, like, and then when I got sober and like guys would ask me out, I'd be like, I'd give them my number, and then I'd be like, if you're interested, you'll call, you know, like call, I'd be like, call me, and they'll be like, oh, well, okay, like they assumed I was just gonna like go home with them. I'm like, well, if you're interested, like I'm out with my friends, if you're interested, give me a call. And let me just tell you, like 80 to 90% of the people didn't call. Well, okay, and I'm not saying that I've never had a one night stand, because that would be me completely lying, but it's like, I want more out of life than that, you know what I mean? Like, and I never just wanted the hookup. I could care less about that. That just wasn't that important to me. And, you know, I don't know where I got that stuff, like growing up and like trying to make good choices and, you know, trying to be a good person and wanting somebody to, I mean, like that whole kind of like, I did not value myself when I was using and drinking. I mean, I could get on here and I could tell you guys some stories that you'd be like, seriously? But the thing that's different for me is that like when I was using, I wasn't like the town whore. I would date the guy that had drugs, is what I did. Like, I was an opportunist drug addict. Like, I would date the guy that I knew was going to have a lot of drugs that I wouldn't have to pay for it. You know, and to me, I don't think that's any better than what a lot of other people do, you know? So, I mean, I would date somebody I was completely not interested in, and just because I knew that I was going to get drugs and alcohol. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Sometimes I wish, like, looking back, like, I would have done it so different, you know, like I would have gone to a college campus and, you know, like, but I look at that and then I think so when I look at my life and where I'm at today and where I was supposed to end up, like, that was not supposed to be my journey. I really cannot see myself, like, on a college campus living there. I don't. I think that had I done that, I would have been home in 6 months. I really do, or less than. I don't think that's where I wanted to be. Even when, like, I was like 18, I was hanging out with people that were like 26. Like, I had no desire to be around, like, let alone in a dorm room with a bunch of people that were my age. I just didn't relate to it, you know? When I was in high school, I always hung out with people that were older than me, except for, like, my one friend, Leisha, that was a year younger than me. And I was that person that would say, all my friends are older, you know? Like, I was that person. But, like, I did. Like, and even when I started, like, dating guys and stuff, you know, it was like, I dated guys that were 2 or 3 years older than me. Well, of course, because I had a fake ID and I was 18 going out to a bar, and most of them were 21 or 22. It's so funny because my best friend from high school, Jenny, and the first guy that I ever dated, who has been my best gay male friend since I don't know, I was 19 and he was 21, Craig. And we met at a party at Purdue University, and then we saw each other at a bar called NYC, and that wasn't a gay bar here. And then he asked me out on a date, and he had just graduated from Purdue with a biochemistry degree and ended up becoming a biochemist, and now he's a surgeon. I'll never forget, after our first date, I was like, I really like you. I go, but I think we're supposed to be friends, not date. Sometimes when I talk to him, I'm like, girl, I think we're supposed to date. He's married now and I'm married too, but I'm like, he lives in this fantastic house and he travels all the time. And I'm like, oh, Craig, I love you so much. I think we're supposed to date now. So anyway, I always tell him that I'm like his, he's my Angela Bassett and I'm his Whoopi Goldberg, and he's supposed to call me up and take me to Jamaica, like in What Happened, or How Stella Got Her Groove Back. He still hasn't called me for that trip. So Craig, if you're watching this, you need to call me. But anyway, he posted a picture today on his Instagram, and my best friend Jenny from high school, we used to all hang out, right? Like, I introduced them, okay? Don't y'all forget I introduced y'all. She's like in Florida, and she was like, they were all out at some like pub having drinks, and he like posted this picture, and he was like a long time reunion, and I was like, nobody's asking me to have a reunion, assholes. But I thought that was cute. So anyway, it's funny, you know, like the stuff that you remember. I was talking about that being on that children's album, and I kept on thinking of this woman's name. It starts with a K. I can't remember what it was. But I also, I was going to say Mrs. Kinnear. And what's so funny is I used to take cotillion in Indianapolis when I was like, I don't know, 13 or 14. And did you guys ever do, I don't know why, like my parents did not push it. It was like my friend, like 2 of my girlfriends were doing it. And so I was like, Mom, I want to do it too. And we would go do cotillion like once a week, where you had to like get dressed in a suit, and they would get dressed in like dresses, and they would have like, what do you call it, like gloves on, the women. And then they would, you know, we would learn like the foxtrot and the cha-cha, all that shit that nobody needs to know. And but looking back on that was like really fun. That was like in 7th grade, I think. And we had like a winter formal, and all the girls wore their like rabbit coats. Oh my God, my life, I swear. That place is still there too, and it's called Mrs. Kinnear's, and I'm like, Mrs. Kinnear would be like 120 at this point. She was like 80 at the time. And she'd just sit there and she'd say, okay, cha-cha. And then you had to go up to people and ask them if they would like to dance. And we actually had dance cards and everything. Like, seriously, like it was the 1950s. And then every time that we went, we would have like punch. And like we would have like punch, like sherbet punch and stuff. Do you guys remember sherbet punch at school dances? And then I never went to any school dances. My mom would always say to me, my mom would say, She was so corny sometimes. She would say, I don't know why you don't want to go. Like, this is like when I'm a junior in high school, okay? Smoking pot with my friends, getting drunk on the weekends. My mom, of course, I have like spiked hair and I've got like a, a Sid Vicious t-shirt on, and like some denim jacket with like... And my mom would say, I don't know why you don't want to go to this school dance. I mean, you know all the dances. You took Mrs. Kinnear's cotillion class. Like, I'm going to go to the school dance in Cha-Cha, Mom. Like, okay. Oh my God, I wish she was still alive. This is the kind of stuff that we got laughing so hard at that we almost like peed ourselves. It was so funny. And then she'd just like pull a name out of the air. She'd be like, well, why didn't you ask that nice Judy Smith? You used to like her. I'm like, yeah, in 4th grade, Mom. Like, did your mom ever do that to you? She'd be like, like I'd have a crush on somebody in like 3rd grade, My mom would be like, why don't you ask that Sally girl? I used to like her so much. I'm like, Mom, I'm a senior. That was when I'm like thirsting over the wrestler sitting next to me in class. My mom's wanting to hook me up with my 3rd grade crush. Like, seriously. That's what was fucked up about my life. But true story, like with the whole coming out thing. I say this on here a lot. It's like, or I say this in general a lot. And other gay men look at me like I'm crazy when I say this. Like, I really, and I don't know if they didn't think about it or whatever, but like, I really didn't think that what my life looks like today was possible. And it's one of the reasons why I do talk about being a gay couple, being married, why monogamy is important to me, going to the vet, as husbands, medical care, things like that, traveling together. I think it's important for people to see normal gay couples that are no different than anybody else. And it's not like we have a sex dungeon that, with, leather everywhere. I mean, I think that's sometimes what people's conceptions are when they don't really know any gay couples. And so it's important for me to normalize that process. Okay, I was gonna say the computer. The camera's about to shut off because I'm at 29 minutes. So hold on just a second. But it's important for me to like normalize that process and at least be one representation of what normality looks like. I mean, if you want to consider Alex and I normal. Because when I was like, even when I was like 20, 22, and I would date somebody like, well, how old was I when I first started dating Jared, my first boyfriend? I was 23. That was my first long-term relationship. But I mean, I dated guys before that for like 6 months, 3 months, stuff like that. I never imagined until I was with him that like I could have, and it was really, I have to say, my parents' acceptance and my family's acceptance. That like my first boyfriend, Jared, like when we would go to like, he came to all of my family's holidays. When we would go out to dinner, he always came out to dinner with us. Like, he was a part of the family, And somebody was asking me to talk about traveling with my dad and my stepmom a lot. We were the couple that traveled a lot with my dad and my stepmom. My last ex didn't love my dad and my stepmom. Like, he was a little intimidated by my dad, and so he never did stuff with them. But like, my first boyfriend, Jared, we traveled to Grand Cayman, Cancun 3 times. Cabo San Lucas, Florida. I mean, we went all over the place. Skiing 1 year, I think. We went somewhere else too. Where else did we go? But anyway, and like, I remember when he came to my mom's funeral that day, and like, I remember seeing him. He loved my dad and my stepmom, and they loved him. And I remember I saw him over there, like talking to them, and it was weird because my ex that I had just broken up with 6 months before, that was like really close with my mom, and my mom was not as close with my first boyfriend. She liked him, but she wasn't as close to him as she was with my ex. She like adored him. She considered him like a son-in-law. She really did. And so it was like weird at the funeral, but like, at the same time, it was nice. It was nice that, like, there's a lot of families that don't ever accept their kids for being gay. And that's never been an issue with me. And, when I was young, I just never thought that would be the case. I thought, well, I'll have to get married and have kids, and that's what you do, Like, you can't... I think I pushed the thought away so much because I didn't see gay couples living together, without it being kind of like this weird thing. Or, like my mom and my aunt had friends that were gay, but you would never hear them talk about like their boyfriend or their partner that they lived with. It'd always be like, oh, well, I think he has a special friend or something like that. It was just, and it wasn't like they had an issue with it. So when Jared and I started dating, like I just brought him around, and said, this is my boyfriend. My mom really had kind of a hard time with it at first. She would say, friend, this is Peter's friend, and I remember she and I got into it one day because I looked at her and it was like, he and I went into where she worked, and she said something about him being my friend, and we had been dating for like a year and a half at the point. We were living together, and she came out like she was like coming out, she was working at this stupid store at the mall, and she came out like to say goodbye to us, and I said to her, I go, do you know how offensive it is to me that you call him my friend when you know that he's my boyfriend? Like, he's not my friend, he's not my special friend, he's my boyfriend. Like, call it what it is. And what was interesting was, I don't tell this story on here a lot, but my mother was very it wasn't until Matthew Shepard, who, if you don't know who that was, he was, there's a lot of different stories now. They say different things happened, but I don't know. So I'm going to respect the original story. The original story was that these guys took him home from a bar. He was gay in Laramie, Montana? Wyoming, I think. And they strung him out on this fence, and they left him to die, and he died. The next day at the hospital, the police found him. And when that happened, and that was huge, if you're of my generation, you'll remember that happening. I mean, it was huge news. And they, MTV did like a 24-hour thing where they just it was like music videos, but they just streamed, people like writing in stuff. And it was then that my mom, everything changed for her. There were no special friends. There were no boyfriends at that point, It was at that point that she saw it the way that I wanted her to. I remember when my ex and I, the first year that we got a cabin in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and when we went there, it was like a 3-bedroom cabin, and we got there, and my mother was not a prude, okay? I want to make that very, very clear, but she did believe in, she is where I get the monogamy and the traditional marriage and all that kind of stuff, why it was important for me to get married on the up, not the down of the clock and stuff like that. Well, we got there, and she said, oh, well, where are you guys sleeping? I'll never forget this. And I said, our bedroom's right there. And she goes, so you're going to sleep in the same bedroom? And I said, yeah. And she goes, okay. And I said, is there a problem with that, Mom? And she said, no. She said, but you're not married. And she said, if I had a daughter that wasn't married, I wouldn't be okay with her sleeping in a room with her boyfriend that she lived with. I'm just telling you. At my house, you two would sleep in separate rooms. And, at the time, it kind of pissed me off, but, later, looking back on it, I was for me, it was such a defining moment that my mom really saw me for who I was and respected it, respected my relationship. And, that's why today, I know my dad and my stepmom, they wouldn't have given a shit if I had come out in high school. They really wouldn't have. My dad said he knew I was gay when I was 4. They wouldn't have given a shit. They would have supported me 100%. My dad would beat somebody's ass if they came for me. I'm just telling you right now, okay? My dad is a big guy, and he would beat somebody's ass. He has gotten into it with people overcoming for me before. Not physically, but my dad has let people have it. So, and my stepmom is cutthroat too, and they are protective through and through with me. My mom, I think, would have had a harder time with it in high school. I think she would have had a harder time with people saying things and the cruelty factor of it, because she would have wanted to control it and not been able to do that, you know? But like, all my girlfriends had boyfriends in high school. You know, they all got to go on dates. When I was sitting at home watching, you know, TV with my mom on a Friday night, when they were all out on date nights on Friday nights, that's what I was doing, you know? And, to some degree, you know, like, it makes me sad. And I think that's why, like, when I turned 18 and I started going out, like, I started dating, like, right away. Like, right away. I was excited to go on dates, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And, I don't know, but then I wonder, you know, even if I had been out in high school, would I have felt safe dating or comfortable? It's a different world than it was then, you know? It's a completely different world. And I don't know that I think sometimes it's 100% better, you know, like when I did a video like 6 months ago on teen drag queens, and you know, it was interesting because of the whole like drag showdown. You guys know that I watch that show on here that Crystal Ball Diva puts on, and I think she's like 22 now. But so anyway, she and I were talking, you know, because so many people responded to that video in a really positive way. Like, so many of those kids, like, you know, messaged me and were like, "Thank you so much for bringing attention to these, like, our underground drag races." And, you know, people don't really know how hard it is for us. And they told me their stories, you know, and they said, like, my mom and dad don't even know that I'm gay. They don't know that I've ever done drag. I do it in my bedroom. I lock the doors. I wait till they're gone. It's my outlet, you know. And I think, like, but how have we changed? You know, has society really changed for the better? You know, like, and I'm sure that's scary to parents. I really try to put myself in the parent role and say, like, if my child was doing that, I so would want to embrace them and support them. But at the same time, I think I would be so fearful for how society would treat them that I don't know. I mean, like, but I think that's what I would say. And that's what my mom said to me, you know, when I came out. She said, "I'm afraid of how society is going to treat you." She said, "Society is not always kind to gay people." And that's the case, you know. I'm 45 years old and I have a YouTube channel and people still comment about me being gay on my videos. Like, seriously? Like, who does that? It's crazy to me. I mean, I don't care, but, like, it's crazy to me that that's the condition of our society today, you know? That we're still so ate up with that stuff, and really all I want to do is be married to my husband and have 3 dogs and live in a house. Like, it's just not that deep, you know what I mean? Like, what's your issue with that? And I've always said with, like, these religious fanatics, this is why I don't get in the religious discussion with people, okay? Because I will never understand their point of view. I will never understand it. If it is their mission to keep people apart, okay, that love each other, let's just take everything else about it. Let's just leave it at that, the love factor, okay? If it is their intention to keep people apart that love each other, and that on their deathbed they can look back and they can say, wow, like, I really did some shit in this world. I kept 2 loving people apart. Then that's on them. That's not on me. They gotta live their life, okay? I am just not so intent on spinning my wheels and spending my precious time on keeping 2 people that love each other apart. That's some sick shit to me. I don't want that to be my proudest moment when I die. I just don't want it to be, you know? We should allow people to be happier instead of keeping them from their happiness. If their happiness is something that's dangerous, that's hurting them, you know, that's fine. But I will say that is one thing that I did learn from my dad, that there are certain conversations I just don't engage in because it's just pointless and you're never going to win. And it's just like, and I also believe that people are allowed to have their opinions, you know? I really do. I think, like, I don't need you to, like, battle your opinions in my head, but I think you have a right to have your opinions. So, I don't know. People ask me that all the time, that they're like, if you were back in high school again, would you come out? I mean, if I came today, I don't know. And then, you know, you hear about, kids are still being bullied in high schools. You know, I think that there's more, like, the rate of suicide of gay kids or LGBT kids today is higher than it was when I was in high school. So, I don't know, like, I don't know that I'm convinced that it's any easier today. I really don't. And And the thing is that before you come out, you never know what it's going to be like on the other side. That's the fear, right? Is that you don't know after you say it, what it's going to be like, which is typically why we tell one person at a time, you know? These brave souls that make these coming out videos on, like, you know, coming out day and stuff like that, man, I could never have done that. There's no way. Put myself out there like that. I mean, it has taken me, you know, 45 years to get to the point where I can get on video and just tell my shit, you know? But man, there is no way I would have done it back then. I would have been scared to death because I wouldn't have known what was going to happen after that. Like, that's scary, you know? I think my advice, you know, people ask me all the time, like, what's your coming out advice? I think my coming out advice isn't any different than my advice to life things. You know, it's like, with anything, don't ever push yourself into something that you're not ready to do. Think it through. Tell the safest person, see how it goes. Tell your grandma or your best friend or, I mean, you know, a coworker. Tell somebody that, and that's anything in life. Anything, you know? And, take it from there and be slow and be careful and protect yourself, you know? Every time I pass the street, which is the street that takes you to the Baumeister Mansion, I always lock my door. Do you notice that? I always get so spooked when I go down that street. I don't know what that's about. People have been really asking me to tell paranormal stories lately, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't even know that I want to. Like, I'm so scared to tell them. Like, I get so spooked myself, you guys. And then when I tell the paranormal stories, like, I've had a lot of paranormal things happen to me, but when I tell them, I start getting, like, really scared, like, in my real life. Like, seriously, like, I'm almost bringing it into, like, reality, you know? Should I tell more paranormal stories? Would you guys like that? Maybe I'll do that. Somebody asked me today, they said, I would like you to talk about, like, your traveling with your dad. I can do that. It was fun, you know, like, we had a good time. Like, I traveled a lot with my dad in high school, and I also traveled with my dad with my ex, Jared, my first boyfriend. And we had a good time, you know? I mean, I'm not gonna lie, my dad travels, and he travels well when he likes to, because he doesn't get to travel a lot because of his work. So when he does, he likes to, you know, fly well, stay in beautiful hotels, and, you know, just gorgeous places. And I never had to pay for anything, which was, I mean, that's a trip in itself, you know? And, I don't know, it was nice. My dad's a really interesting guy. Like, he has, like, just this vast knowledge of just total nonsensical information. He reads the strangest books in the entire world. Like, if you ask him what he's reading, he's like, well, I'm reading, like, this book about this insect that there's only 5 of them in the entire world, and they live to be 640 years. I'm like, where did you find out about this book? He's like, oh, I saw an article in the Wall Street Journal about it. I'm like, oh, okay. And then he can tell you everything about this insect. And then he goes, you know, it's like he reads weird stuff, or like, I don't know. And Alex loves it. Alex is always like getting book suggestions from my dad, and they sit there and it's just crazy. But they don't travel as much as they used to, which is why Alex and I don't really travel with them much. But we did talk at lunch about all of us going somewhere soon. My dad loves the Turks and Caicos, so I've never been, and I told him that would be kind of a fun family trip. Hint, hint. Hint, hint, family trip to the Turks and Caicos. Hope I don't have to pay for that one. Woo, that place is supposed to be expensive. I also want to go to Anguilla. My dad loves Anguilla. So, I don't know. We used to have a lot of fun. We would travel. My dad is very much like cut off jeans and a t-shirt, rent a Jeep, and drive all over some island. That's what it was about back in the day. You know, being on the beach all day long. My dad, loves to take pictures, so he's always had like these huge professional cameras, and so he'll sit on the beach like while my stepmom and I are like laying out, you know, getting in the water and stuff. I'm thinking of this one time we rented a house in St. Martin, and we were there for like 3 weeks, and every day my stepmom and I would we could see the dolphins like swimming out in front. It was like this really isolated house. It was very cool. It was one of my, I mean, it probably was the best trip I've ever taken in my entire life. And I read the whole time. It was just fantastic, you know? And we would go to the casino, drive into the casino, or drive into the town and go to eat at some like small little like local restaurant, you know? And But my dad, the whole trip, my stepmom and I got laughing so hard. He had this long camera, and he would like, all he did all day long was take pictures of this one lizard, and he called him Mr. Lizard. Okay, so my dad loves animals, right? I've talked about Mrs. Ducky on here before. So, have I not talked about Mrs. Ducky? So, Mrs. Ducky is this duck. He thinks it's the same duck, but it's not the same duck. It's this duck that comes every year, and she makes a nest by their pool, and so then she swims in the pool all day long and watches her nest of eggs. Well, my dad, he's so corny. My parents, you guys wonder how I ended up the way I am. He takes this baby crib and puts it next to the pool, right? And then he's like Jimmy rigged and like MacGyvered this whole thing so that it has a hole in it. And then he's got this like thing where she can like dive down into the pool from the and then go back up right into the baby thing. And so then it's just crazy. And then he takes pictures and he gets in the pool and he swims with Mrs. Ducky. And so he'll call me and I'll be like, how are you doing, Dad? And he'll be like, oh, well, I was just swimming with Mrs. Ducky, and her eggs are getting like, they look like they're gonna, I'm like, I cannot believe I'm having this conversation with my dad. So anyway, it's so cute though. He's always been like that with animals and his dogs and stuff. My dad is happiest. They live on a lake. My dad is happiest sitting on his back porch, smoking a cigar with his dogs, watching the lake. He loves it. And reading a book. That's like my dad's favorite thing in the entire world. So anyway, this whole vacation, my dad, the camera just shut off. I don't know what happened. So anyway, we're on this vacation, and we get back, and my stepmom called me, and she was like, you know how your dad had like 15 rolls of film? And I was like, yeah. She goes, yeah, there's like one of us, and the rest of them are all Mr. Lizard. I kind of love that though. I don't know. I love that my dad's that way with animals. I definitely get the animal thing from my dad. My mom was terrified of animals. Terrified of animals. Like you literally could have like a miniature Pomeranian that was smiling to you across the room and was the sweetest thing in the entire world, and my mother would be like, oh my God, it's gonna kill me. I mean, she was terrified of animals. She was terrified of anything. We had this in our house that I was growing up in. This is a bad story. This is a drug story, but so in the house that I grew up in, it was in the woods, okay? Like we were on a cul-de-sac, and then the back was all woods that went on forever. And there's a lot of wildlife in woods. You look out the window and you see a deer standing in the creek. We had a creek that went right behind our house. And I've done a whole video on here where I went and showed the house. But anyway, so you'd see deer in the wood. You'd see all kinds of stuff, So, I mean, coyote were in our front yard. You couldn't let the dogs out because of the coyotes and fox and stuff like that. So anyway, I'm at my friend's house. I was like a senior in high school, and my mom called me. We had this one room. So our house went like kitchen, dining room, and then like the living room was in front, and then the library was over here, but then went kitchen, dining room, and then we had this like, you stepped down, and it was like this porch, but it wasn't screened in. It was like a room, but 3 walls of the one wall was 2 French doors that opened, and 3 walls were floor-to-ceiling windows that cranked out. And so we called it the porch. It had green carpet in it, and the rest of the room was white brick. It was fantastic. It was, anytime anybody came to the house, they were like, this is the most incredible room in the world, in the house. And it's set up, like, it was on the 2nd story, so it looked over the woods, right? My nose. So it's not like you were ever afraid like somebody was going to come up to the window, because you were up like 30 feet in the air. You know what I mean? My mother, so we had a TV out there, and that's where we would watch TV and stuff. It was kind of spooky because, like, if you were watching TV or you had the lights on out there and people drove by the cul-de-sac or were standing in your yard, they could look in and see you, like, just sitting there. So that was kind of creepy. And there were a couple times that, like, my mom, like, later after I moved out, would be like, somebody was standing in the yard looking at me. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she's like, I had the lights off and I was watching TV, and she was like, I had the windows open, because in the summer she would crack the windows open to have like the cool air come in, and she said I could hear somebody like out there, like they coughed like in the yard, and she said I looked and they started running away. I mean, it was kind of spooky, like the house that I lived in growing up. So anyway, she called me one day and she was like, there is a snake in the tree. And I was like, what are you talking about? My mother scared to death of snakes. And because we lived on had a creek behind us, there were a lot of water moccasins back there. And water moccasins are really dangerous snakes. She goes, I think it's a water moccasin. I go, how is there a water moccasin up in the tree? Which I don't even know to this day. It could be possible. And she goes, I'm just telling you, there's a snake in this tree. And I'm panicking. I'm panicking. She was like, oh my God, there's a snake in the tree. You've got to come home. You've got to come home. There's a snake in the tree. I go, what am I supposed to do about a snake in the tree? Okay, now I was high as a kite. Okay, that's the bad part of the story. I was high as a kite, and my friend Margaret and I were probably like, I don't know, we were drinking something. I can remember her parents were out of town, and I was over there, and I had no plans on coming home anytime soon. We were over there, and we used to drink wine coolers. Y'all remember wine coolers back in the day? I go, what are you talking about? And she goes, you've got to come over. You've got to come home. You've got to come home. There's a snake in the tree. So I come home. She's like pointing to this tree out back. Panicking, okay? The tree is 30 feet in the air, and I'm looking at it, and true story, there's about a 10-foot snake coming off this limb, just like hanging off this. I go, my godmother, I go, it's in the woods. You can't, how is this snake gonna get you? She's like, oh my God, do something about it. I'm going to Kathy's and staying for the night. I said, okay, go stay at my Aunt Kathy's. I go stay at Kathy's. She's like, I didn't know that there were snakes like that. Oh my God, what if it got in the house? I said, get in the house. What are you talking about, Mom? Oh my God, craziness. So my mother hated animals, but my dad loved animals. He loved them. And when I grew up, I had an Airedale named Clifford. I named him after Clifford the Big Red Dog. He was awesome. He lived to be about 16, I think. And he was my dog, but like he turned into my dad's dog because my dad trained him, and my dad would take him everywhere, and Airedales are incredible animals. And then my stepmom got Jolie Chardonnay, and that was the Yorkie they got when Clifford was like 2. So that was their first 2 dogs together, and they both lived to be quite old, and they were just really sweet dogs. And then my stepmom got okay, so she wanted a miniature Yorkie, and she got Billy. So they got this dog, and it was from Louisiana. My dad and my stepmom are so corny with naming their dogs, okay? So they got this miniature Yorkie that they paid a shit ton of money for it to be a miniature Yorkie. He's still alive, and he is about 20-pound Yorkie. He's the fattest Yorkie you've ever seen. He's so sweet. But his name is Billy Jambalaya Gumbo. He's so cute. And so then they also had my dad named that one. Then they also had, are you ready for this one? Coco Chanel. My stepmom named that one. And Coco Chanel was a miniature Yorkie, and they said that the doctor said she wouldn't live past like a year and a half because she was like, my stepmom took her to the vet because she was sick, and the vet was like real mean to her and said, this dog is like, these are like, what do they call them? Designer dogs. He goes, it's genetic waste, and it's not going to live past a year and a half. He was real mean to her. And she goes, you don't think my dog's going to live past a year and a half? Okay. So my stepmom went home. This dog, I swear to God, its tongue always hung out like about a foot, right? It was so sweet. It was like this, it was so cute. It was this little Yorkie about this big. And my stepmother fed that dog with an eyedropper, okay, every night and every morning she fed it with an eyedropper, and that dog lived to be about 7. True story. And so now they just have Billy, and Billy's like 15, I think. And I said something to them about, are they gonna get another dog? And my dad just looks so sad. I think my dad, the older he gets too, knows, like, you know, like, I'm gonna get real emotional thinking about this, but he's like, you know, I mean, like, the next dog will probably be his last dog that he ever has, you know? And I think about my dad, like, when he was a little kid, and my grandma would tell the story about how his best friend Vincent, he would, like, they would rescue stray dogs, and at one point they had like 30 dogs, and they were like, they would bathe them and feed them, and then they would give them to people in the neighborhood as pets, these stray dogs. My dad is such a gentle soul, you know, and He's just such a great guy. It's weird when your parents start getting older. I was telling Alex, like, I'm watching Grace and Frankie this season, and I'm having a really hard time watching it. It's, like, really sad, you know? It's, like, really talks a lot about aging and getting older in there, and they're, like, one of the things they talk about is going to a lot of funerals for their friends that are dying. It's, like, I can't start thinking about that stuff, because when I do, like, I think about, like, all the good times and stuff that happened, and that was, like, 20 and 30 years ago, and then it makes me feel very old, and I'm like, I'm not that old. I'm 45, like, seriously, you know? I have a lot of living left to do, and, but animals leave, and people leave, and things change, and that's why you have to get excited about things and plan trips and do new projects and grow, because it'd be really easy to just, like, my mother, I think part of why she was sad a lot of the time was because, you know, she would get very stuck in this kind of, like, you know, gerbil wheel of, well, everybody's gone that I know, and, you know, what's going to happen to me, and she lived in fear a lot, and I think that's a hard place to live, you know, when you don't really know, like, what the world holds for you. And I think, like, if my mom were here today and she said, you know, like, she had no clue she was going to be gone by 64, I can tell you that right now. And, I think she would say, if I knew that I was going to be gone so early, I would have really, really taken some risks and lived my life. But I think she would also say this. I think she would also say, but the risks and the travel and the excitement is important, but the family dinners, the pets, the time on the phone talking to your friends, the driving around having fountain pops, you know, the laughing until you almost can't laugh anymore, those times are just as important too. I really think she would say that, you know. And I do know one thing, that at the end of my mom's life, even though there were a lot of things that she didn't get to do, I do know that she looked back. I know that she would have looked back and said she had a great life. I know that. I mean, she did so many things that she wanted to do, you know, and she had a very blessed life. So, and I do too, and I need to be thankful for that every day. And this is just one piece of that. And I'm thankful for you guys, you know, for sitting here and listening to me for an hour, which is, I've been rambling now for an hour. So, and I've been all over the place. So I'm going to get off here now. And I've cried, I've laughed. It's been another show with Peter, you know. So I should write a theme song for this channel, don't you think? And then at the end of every episode, like I'm Roseanne, at the end of every episode, I'll sing the theme song. What was the theme song to the end of the Carol Burnett show? I used to love that song. Anyway, all right, you guys, I hope you're having a wonderful Valentine's Day. If you got to spend it with the one you love, I hope you enjoyed it and had fun. If you were alone, I hope you did something to treat yourself special. You deserve it. We all, bit my mouth. We all deserve to be, we all deserve to feel a little bit special. So even if we have to do it for ourselves, you know what I mean? I love you guys, and I will see you later. Bye.